She skipped lunch to feed her baby, but the undercover billionaire watching fell in love. She had exactly $12 in her checking account when her baby started crying for formula she couldn't afford. But the man watching her from booth 7 was about to change everything, and he was lying about who he really was. Kamilah Dubois stared at her phone screen, watching those numbers mock her. $12.37. Rent was due in 3 days. The electric company had already sent 2 warnings. And baby Zaire was hungry again. "Girl, you look like death warmed over," Esperanza whispered, sliding past her behind the counter of Mel's diner. "When's the last time you ate something?" Kamilah couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? Time blurred together when you worked 16-hour days and survived on coffee and determination. She glanced at the clock, 11:47 a.m. Her lunch break was in 13 minutes, but there wouldn't be any lunch. That $12 needed to stretch until her grocery store shift tonight. "I'm fine, Essie," she lied, forcing a smile as she grabbed the coffee pot. "Just tired." But she wasn't fine. Nothing had been fine since Darius walked out 6 months ago, leaving her with a 3-month-old baby and promises that turned to dust. The single mom life wasn't supposed to be this hard. In all those movies, the struggling mother always had family support, or met some decent guy, or caught a break. Real life was different. Real life was choosing between feeding yourself and feeding your child, and it wasn't even a choice. Family, if you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss what happens next. And if you're one of our returning viewers, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Now, stay with us to the end of this story. Leave a comment with your thoughts and like this video if you believe in truth, love, loyalty, and justice. Let's continue. The bell above the door chimed, and Kamilah looked up to see him walk in. Booth 7. Same time, every day for the past 3 weeks. Tall, broad shoulders, work boots that had actually seen work. Construction worker, she figured. Probably made decent money, but not enough to throw around. Just another working guy trying to get by. What she didn't know was that Thaddeus Crane owned 3 tech companies worth $2.8 billion. What she didn't know was that those scuffed work boots cost more than her monthly rent. What she didn't know was that he'd been coming here specifically to watch her, part of some twisted social experiment his business partner had dared him to try. "Morning, Ted," she called out, using the name he'd given her. He always asked for the same thing: black coffee, wheat toast, scrambled eggs. Simple. Honest. Like he was. Except nothing about him was honest. "Hey, Kamilah," he said, and her name sounded different when he said it. Careful. Like it mattered. "How's the little guy?" She'd mentioned Zaire exactly once 3 weeks ago, when she'd gotten a call about daycare pickup and had to explain to her manager why she needed to leave early. But Ted remembered. Most guys heard single mom and disappeared faster than free food at closing time. He's good. Growing fast. Too fast. She poured his coffee, and their fingers brushed for just a second when he took the cup. There it was again, that spark she'd been trying to ignore. The one that made her stomach flip and reminded her she was still a woman, not just a tired mom stumbling through each day. "That's what they do," Ted said, and something in his voice caught her attention. Like he knew about kids. Like maybe he'd been around them before. Her phone buzzed. Text message from the daycare. Pickup fee applies after 6 p.m. $25 per hour. $25 an hour. Her grocery store shift ended at midnight. If she was even 5 minutes late picking up Zaire, that would eat up most of her $12. The math was simple and brutal. "You okay?" Ted was watching her face, those gray eyes missing nothing. "Yeah, just." She shoved the phone in her pocket. Just scheduling stuff. But he saw right through her. That was the thing about real struggle. It showed on your face no matter how hard you tried to hide it. And Thaddeus Crane, despite all his lies about his identity, was starting to see Kamilah Dubois more clearly than she saw herself. "Your eggs will be right up," she said, walking away before he could ask more questions. Before those kind eyes made her want to tell him things she had no business sharing with a customer. What she didn't see was Ted pulling out his phone. What she didn't see was him texting his assistant, find out everything about Kamilah Dubois. Quietly. What she didn't know was that her life was about to change forever. But first, it was going to get much, much worse. Don't click away, because what happens in the next few minutes will make you question everything you think you know about love, money, and the lies we tell ourselves to survive. The eggs were getting cold in the kitchen window, but Kamilah couldn't stop staring at her phone. The daycare had just sent another text, Zaire has a fever. Please pick up immediately. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Babies got sick. It happened all the time. But when you're a single mother with no health insurance and $12 to your name, a fever isn't just a fever. It's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Essie, she called out, already untying her apron. I need to go. Zaire's sick. Esperanza appeared at her elbow, all 5 feet of concerned best friend energy. How sick? Like, sniffle sick or hospital sick? I don't know yet. Kamilah's hands were shaking as she grabbed her keys. Can you tell Jerry I'll make up the hours tomorrow? Girl, Jerry's gonna fire you if you keep leaving early. Essie's voice was gentle but real. They both knew the score. Mel's Diner wasn't exactly known for accommodating single mothers, and Jerry had already made comments about reliability issues. Then he fires me. The words came out sharper than Kamilah meant them to. My baby comes first. Always. She rushed toward the door, but a voice stopped her. Kamilah. It was Ted, standing up from booth 7 with concern written all over his face. Is everything okay? My son's sick, she said quickly. I have to go. Do you need, he started, but she was already pushing through the door. What Kamilah didn't know was that Thaddeus Crane had grown up poor. Dirt poor. The kind of poor where your mom chose between electricity and groceries, where being sick meant tough it out because doctors cost money you didn't have. He'd built his fortune on that hunger, that desperation to never be powerless again. And watching Kamilah run out to face the same fears he remembered from childhood did something to his chest that felt dangerously close to breaking. The daycare was a 15-minute drive that felt like an hour. When Kamilah burst through the doors, she found Zaire flushed and crying in Mrs. Chen's arms. His temperature is 101.2, Mrs. Chen said gently. We've been giving him fluids, but he should probably see a doctor. A doctor. Right. With what money? Kamilah took her baby boy, feeling the heat radiating from his tiny body. 8 months old and already learning that life wasn't fair. Hey, sweet boy, she whispered, and Zaire's crying softened at the sound of her voice. Mama's here. There's a walk-in clinic on 5th Street, Mrs. Chen offered. They have a sliding scale for payment. Sliding scale. Medical debt. Collections calls. Kamilah had watched her own mother destroy her credit trying to pay for health care they couldn't afford. But looking down at Zaire's flushed face, she knew she didn't have a choice. Thank you, she managed, gathering Zaire's diaper bag with shaking hands. The walk-in clinic was everything she expected. Fluorescent lights that made everyone look dead, plastic chairs that had seen better decades, and a waiting room full of people who looked just like her, tired, worried, counting dollars they didn't have. Insurance? The receptionist asked without looking up. I don't have insurance, but I can pay. The lie came out smooth. She'd figure out how to pay later. Okay, honey. That'll be $150 for the visit, plus any additional costs for tests or medications. $150. Kamilah's entire world tilted. She had $12.37, and her baby was burning up in her arms. Can I set up a payment plan? The receptionist finally looked up, and her expression softened when she saw Kamilah's face. Fill out these forms. We'll see what we can do. 3 hours later, Kamilah walked out with a prescription for infant Tylenol, a diagnosis of viral infection, and a bill for $184 that might as well have been $1 million. The medicine cost another $22 at the pharmacy, money she didn't have but charged to a credit card that was already maxed out. By the time she got home to her tiny apartment, Zaire was sleeping fitfully in his car seat, and Kamilah was running on fumes in fear. She'd missed her entire grocery store shift. Jerry from the diner had left 2 voicemails that she was too scared to listen to. She was heating a bottle with hands that wouldn't stop shaking when someone knocked on her door. It was Mrs. Odette from next door, holding a container of homemade soup. "I heard the baby crying earlier. Thought you might need this." The kindness broke something inside Kamilah's chest. "Mrs. Odette, I can't." "Child, you can and you will. We take care of each other around here." The elderly woman pressed the warm container into Kamilah's hands. "How's the little man?" "Fever. The doctor says it's viral, so it just has to run its course." Mrs. Odette studied Kamilah's face with eyes that had seen 73 years of struggle. "And how are you?" That simple question, when's the last time someone had asked her that, almost undid her completely. "I'm managing," Kamilah whispered. "No, baby. You're drowning. But you're too proud to say it." What neither of them knew was that across town, in a penthouse office overlooking the city, Thaddeus Crane was staring at a dossier with Kamilah's picture on it. Single mother. 2 jobs. No family support. Living paycheck to paycheck. He'd started this as an experiment. But somewhere between the first cup of coffee and watching her sacrifice everything for her child, it had become something else entirely. Something that was about to change both their lives forever. But first, Kamilah was about to discover just how cruel the world could be to a woman with nothing left to lose. Family, if you watched this story up to this point, it means it moved you. Leave your thoughts in the comment and make sure to like and hit the subscribe button and like if you haven't. The eviction notice was taped to her door when Kamilah got home from another double shift. Pink paper. Bold black letters. 30 days to pay $1,847 in back rent or get out. She stared at those numbers until they blurred. Zaire was finally healthy again, sleeping peacefully in his crib, but now they might not have a crib to sleep in much longer. The medical bills had eaten up everything. The credit card was maxed. And Jerry had cut her hours at the diner because she'd been unreliable during Zaire's sick week. Her phone buzzed. Text from Darius. "Heard you've been telling people I don't pay child support. Stop lying." She almost threw the phone across the room. Lying? He hadn't sent a single dollar since he walked out. Hadn't even asked about his son. But somehow she was the one lying. "You okay over there?" Mrs. Odette's voice came through the thin walls. Kamilah knocked back. Their signal. 2 knocks for "I'm fine," 3 for "I need to talk." She knocked 3 times. 5 minutes later, Mrs. Odette was sitting at her tiny kitchen table, reading the eviction notice with the careful attention of someone who'd seen too many of them over the years. 30 days, Mrs. Odette said quietly. "Do you have any family who can help?" "My mama's in Atlanta, but she's barely getting by herself. My sister's got her own kids to worry about." Kamilah sat down across from her, feeling older than her 24 years. "I thought about asking my church, but you're too proud." "I'm not proud. I'm just tired of being the charity case. Tired of being the girl everyone whispers about." Poor Kamilah, can't keep a man, can't pay her bills. Mrs. Odette reached across and squeezed her hand. "Baby, pride don't keep the lights on. And it sure doesn't keep a roof over that beautiful boy's head." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to Zaire's soft breathing from the bedroom. Finally, Mrs. Odette spoke again. "There's this program at the community center. Emergency housing assistance. It ain't much, but it might buy you some time." "What's the catch?" "You gotta prove you're looking for better work. Show them you got a plan to get stable." A plan. Right. Like she hadn't been trying every single day to climb out of this hole. The next morning at the diner, Kamilah was refilling Ted's coffee when he noticed something different about her. The spark that usually lit up her eyes when she smiled was gone. She looked defeated. "Rough night?" he asked gently. She almost laughed. "Rough night, rough week, rough life. Just tired." But Ted, really Thaddeus, had been watching her for weeks now, and he'd learned to read the subtle signs of her moods. The way she held her shoulders when money was tight. the forced brightness in her voice when she was worried about Zaire, the way she touched her phone obsessively when bills were due. Today, all those signs were flashing red. "Kamilah," he said carefully, "I know this might be out of line, but if you ever need someone to talk to." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and for a moment he thought she might say something real. Something honest. But then her walls went back up. "Thanks, Ted. But I'm fine." That word again. Fine. The universal lie that women like Kamilah told when they were drowning. After her shift, Kamilah walked to the community center with Zaire on her hip. The emergency assistance office was exactly what she expected. Fluorescent lights, outdated posters about job training, and a line of people who looked just like her. Tired. Desperate. Trying to hold it together. "Next," called the caseworker, a thin woman with kind eyes and a voice that suggested she'd heard every sob story twice. Kamilah sat down across from her, bouncing Zaire gently. "I need help with rent. I got an eviction notice." The caseworker, her name tag said Linda, pulled out a form. "How much do you need?" $1,847. Linda's face didn't change. She'd heard bigger numbers. "What's your monthly income?" "It varies. Between the two jobs, maybe $1,200 on a good month." "And your rent?" $850. Linda did the math quickly. "So even if we help with this month, you'll be behind again next month." "I'm working on getting more hours. Or finding something better." "With what qualifications?" The question hit like a slap. "I graduated high school. I've got customer service experience." "Any college?" "I was going to nursing school before." Kamilah gestured to Zaire. "Before life happened." Linda's expression softened slightly. "Look, honey, I see 3 or 4 women like you every day. Smart women, good mothers, trying to make it work. But the math doesn't work. You need either better childcare so you can work more hours, or better skills so you can get better jobs. Preferably both. So you can't help me? I can probably get you $500. That'll buy you some time, but it won't solve the problem." $500. It was something, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. That evening, Kamilah sat on her fire escape, watching the sun set over the city while Zaire played with blocks on a blanket beside her. Somewhere out there were people who spent more on lunch than she made in a day. Somewhere out there were people who never worried about rent or medicine or whether they'd have electricity tomorrow. Somewhere out there, Thaddeus Crane was staring out his penthouse window, thinking about a young mother who was too proud to ask for help and too stubborn to give up. He'd made his decision. The experiment was over. Tomorrow, he was going to do something about it. But what he didn't know was that Cornelius Blackwell, his business partner, had been watching too. And Cornelius had very different plans for how this story should end. What happens next will test everything Kamilah believes about love, trust, and whether fairy tales can come true in the real world. "You've been playing house with some broke waitress for a month?" Cornelius Blackwell's voice cut through the penthouse office like a blade. "This isn't a social experiment anymore, Thad. This is you being an idiot." Thaddeus looked up from his laptop, where he'd been researching nursing programs at the local community college. Programs that cost money. Money that Kamilah didn't have, but he could provide without even noticing it was gone. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that you've lost your damn mind over some woman who serves coffee for a living." Cornelius paced to the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection sharp against the city lights. "The documentary crew is coming next week. You agreed to show them how easy it is to manipulate working-class people with fake sympathy. Remember?" The documentary. Thaddeus had almost forgotten about the whole reason he'd started going to Mel's Diner in the first place. Some filmmakers wanted to expose how the wealthy viewed the poor, as entertainment, as subjects for study, as less than human. Thaddeus had agreed to be interviewed, to prove that rich people understood the struggles of regular folks. Except now he did understand. And it wasn't theoretical anymore. "Cancel it," he said quietly. Cancel a $2 million documentary deal because you caught feelings for the help? Cornelius laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what this looks like from the outside? The billionaire slums it with a single mother for kicks, then gets bored and moves on. Do you have any idea what that'll do to our reputation? To the company stock? I'm not getting bored. I'm in love with her. The words hung in the air between them like a confession. Cornelius stopped pacing. You're what? I love her. I love how she fights for her kid even when she's exhausted. I love how she remembers everyone's coffee order and asks about their families. I love how she never complains, never gives up, never stops trying. Thaddeus closed the laptop and looked at his oldest friend. I've never met anyone like her. You've never met anyone like her because you've never been poor. This isn't love, Thad. This is guilt. Rich boy guilt dressed up as romance. Maybe Cornelius was right. Maybe this was all some twisted savior complex. But watching Kamilah struggle while he had the power to fix everything felt like dying slowly. I'm going to tell her the truth. No, you're not. Something in Cornelius's tone made Thaddeus look up sharply. Excuse me. You're not telling her anything. Because if you do, I'll make sure she knows exactly what this started as. I'll show her the original documentary proposal. I'll play her the recordings of you laughing about studying the natives. I'll destroy her. You bastard. I'm a businessman. And right now, you're a liability. Cornelius straightened his tie with the calm precision of a man who'd ended careers before breakfast. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to gradually stop going to that diner. You're going to let this little infatuation fade naturally. And in 6 months, when you're thinking clearly again, you'll thank me. And if I don't? Then I'll ruin her. I'll have her fired from both jobs. I'll make sure she never works in food service again. I'll call in every favor, pull every string, make her life so miserable that she'll wish she'd never met you. Cornelius smiled, and it was colder than winter. Don't test me on this. The next morning, Kamilah was setting up for the breakfast rush when Esperanza grabbed her arm. Girl, we need to talk. Now. They ducked into the supply closet, surrounded by boxes of napkins and industrial-sized ketchup bottles. Jerry's been asking questions about you, Esperanza whispered. Weird questions. Like, has anyone been asking about you? Any men in suits? Any calls from companies? Kamilah's stomach dropped. What kind of questions? The kind that means someone's been sniffing around. And not in a good way. Essie grabbed both her hands. Kamilah, is there something you're not telling me? Are you in some kind of trouble? No. I mean, not more than usual. Just the rent thing, and the medical bills, but... This isn't about money. This feels different. Like someone's trying to dig up dirt on you. Before Kamilah could respond, the bell chimed out front. Through the crack in the door, they could see Ted settling into booth 7. Same time, same routine, like always. Except today, he looked different. Tense. Like he was carrying some weight that hadn't been there yesterday. I have to get back to work, Kamilah said, but Essie caught her arm. Be careful. I got a bad feeling about all this. Kamilah poured Ted's coffee with hands that trembled slightly. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the air between them, the way you can feel a storm coming before the first drops of rain. Morning, Ted. Morning. He didn't meet her eyes. Yours. He nodded, still staring at his hands. This wasn't the man who asked about Zaire, who remembered her stories, who looked at her like she mattered. Is everything okay? She asked softly. Finally, he looked up, and what she saw in his eyes made her breath catch. Pain. Guilt. Fear. Kamilah, he started to say something, then stopped. Shook his head. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. She could see it wasn't fine. And suddenly, all of Esperanza's warnings started making terrible sense. Ted, if something's wrong, you can tell me. We're friends, right? Friends. The word seemed to cause him physical pain. Yeah, he said quietly. We're friends. But even as he said it, Kamilah could see him pulling away. Building walls. Preparing to disappear from her life, just like every other good thing that had ever wandered into it. What she didn't know was that across town, someone was already putting the plan in motion to make sure she lost everything. And the man she was falling for was about to become the reason why. The next 24 hours will shatter everything Kamilah thought she knew about trust, love, and the cruel games that wealthy people play with other people's lives. The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. Miss Dubois? This is Dr. Martinez from City General. We have your son here. Kamilah shot upright in bed, her heart immediately in her throat. What? How? He's right here. She spun toward the crib, and her blood turned to ice. Empty. She ran to Mrs. Odette's apartment, pounding on the door. Mrs. Odette. Where's Zaire? You were watching him. Where is he? The elderly woman opened the door in her robe, confused and frightened. Baby, what are you talking about? You picked him up hours ago. That man came and said you'd sent him. What man? The white man. Said he was your friend from work. Had your work ID and everything. Said you were in the hospital and needed someone to get the baby. The world tilted. Kamilah grabbed Mrs. Odette's shoulders. What did he look like? Tall, expensive clothes. Said his name was Cornelius something. Kamilah was already running, grabbing her keys, her phone, not bothering to change out of her pajamas. At the hospital, she burst through the emergency room doors like a hurricane. Where's my son? Zaire Dubois. The nurse at the desk looked up calmly. Room 314. But miss, you can't just. Kamilah was already running toward the elevators, taking the stairs two at a time when the elevator was too slow. Room 314. She shoved through the door and found Zaire in a hospital crib, crying but alive, with monitors attached to his tiny chest. Oh God, baby, what happened to you? She scooped him up, checking every inch of him for harm. Miss Dubois. She spun around to find Dr. Martinez, a kind-faced woman who looked as confused as Kamilah felt. Your son is fine. Healthy. But the man who brought him in claimed he'd been poisoned. Said he found him having seizures. The doctor frowned. We ran every test we could think of. There's nothing wrong with him except some mild dehydration. Poisoned? That's impossible. He was with my neighbor, and she would never. Kamilah's brain was trying to process too much information at once. Who brought him in? A businessman. Said he was a family friend. Mr. Blackwell, I think. The name hit her like a physical blow. She'd never heard it before in her life. Dr. Martinez, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I don't know anyone named Blackwell. No one had permission to take my child. This man kidnapped my son. 3 hours later, Kamilah sat in a police station holding Zaire while Detective Rodriguez took her statement. The story sounded insane even to her own ears. Some stranger had convinced her elderly neighbor to hand over her baby, taken him to a hospital claiming he'd been poisoned, then disappeared. Miss Dubois, are you involved in any kind of legal disputes? Custody battles? Anyone who might want to hurt you or scare you? No. Nobody. I'm just a waitress. I work at Mel's Diner and Stockwright Grocery. I don't have enemies. But even as she said it, she thought about Esperanza's warnings. Someone asking questions about her. Someone digging around. What about the father? Darius hasn't seen Zaire since he was 3 months old. And this isn't his style. He's a deadbeat, not a kidnapper. Detective Rodriguez made notes. We'll look into this Blackwell character. In the meantime, I'd recommend staying with family or friends. Just in case. Just in case. Like her life wasn't already falling apart fast enough. By the time Kamilah got home, it was nearly dawn. Mrs. Odette was waiting on her porch, tears streaming down her face. Baby, I'm so sorry. He seemed so legitimate, had pictures of you on his phone, knew all about your work schedule. It's not your fault. Kamilah hugged the older woman, but inside she was screaming. How did a stranger know her work schedule? How did he have pictures of her? There's something else, Mrs. Odette said quietly. After you left, I kept thinking about what he said. He mentioned your friend from the diner. Ted. Said Ted was worried about you. Ted. The one person who'd been asking questions about her life. The one person who'd shown up right when her troubles started getting worse. Did he say anything else about Ted? Just that Ted had been watching out for you. Like he cared about you and the baby. Mrs. Odette paused. But honey, the way he said it didn't sound right. Like he was making fun of the idea. That's when it hit her. All of it. The timing. The questions. The way Ted had been pulling away yesterday, like he felt guilty about something. Kamilah's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Stop looking into what happened tonight. Some stories are better left alone. A friend. Her hands started shaking. Whoever had taken Zaire was threatening her now. And somehow, it was all connected to Ted. The man she'd been falling for. The man she'd trusted with stories about her son, her struggles, her dreams. The man who might be the reason her baby had been stolen from his crib in the middle of the night. At that moment, 20 miles away in a penthouse office, Thaddeus Crane was screaming at Cornelius Blackwell. You took her baby? Are you completely insane? I proved a point, Cornelius said calmly. She's not some innocent flower, Thad. She's a liability. And now she knows it. What neither of them realized was that they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because Kamilah Dubois wasn't just a struggling single mother anymore. Now she was a mother whose child had been threatened. And that was a completely different kind of danger. What happens next will determine whether love can survive lies, whether trust can be rebuilt after betrayal, and whether a billionaire's money is any match for a mother's rage. Kamilah walked into Mel's diner the next morning with fire in her eyes and Detective Rodriguez's business card in her pocket. She'd spent all night thinking, and the pieces were finally falling into place. Ted was already in booth 7, but today she didn't bring him coffee. Today she slid into the seat across from him and watched his face carefully. We need to talk, she said quietly. About who you really are. His face went white. Kamilah. Don't say my name like you care about me. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Yesterday, someone kidnapped my baby. Took him right out of his crib, told my neighbor that I'd sent him. You know what the kidnapper's name was. Ted's eyes closed. Cornelius. So you do know him. The confirmation hit her like a physical blow, even though she'd been expecting it. Who are you? And don't lie to me again, because I swear to God, if you lie to me one more time. My name is Thaddeus Crane. His voice was barely above a whisper. I own Crane Industries, Blackstone Tech, and about 6 other companies you've probably never heard of. Billionaire. The word hung in the air between them like poison. So this has all been what? Some kind of game? Rich boy pretending to be poor to see how the other half lives. It started that way. The honesty in his voice was like a knife. There was supposed to be a documentary about wealthy people understanding poverty. I was supposed to prove that I could relate to working-class struggles. By lying to me. By making me think you were someone you're not. By letting me tell you about my problems while you sat there knowing you could fix all of them with pocket change. Yes. He looked directly at her then, and she saw everything she'd missed before. The expensive watch he'd tried to hide. The perfect teeth that came from a lifetime of good health care. The way he held himself like someone who'd never doubted he belonged anywhere. Why didn't you just tell me? Because I knew you'd think exactly what you're thinking right now. That I was playing with you. That none of it was real. Wasn't it? No. The word came out fierce, desperate. Kamilah, what I feel for you, what I felt from the very beginning, that was never fake. I've been in love with you since the second week I walked in here. The way you remember everyone's order, the way you worry about Zaire, the way you keep fighting even when everything's falling apart. I've never met anyone like you. Because you've never met anyone poor before. Because I've never met anyone real before. He leaned forward, and she could see tears in those gray eyes. Everyone in my world wants something from me. Money, connections, status. You wanted nothing. You gave me kindness for no reason except that's who you are. Despite everything, despite her anger, something in his voice made her chest tight. Your friend Cornelius took my baby. He's not my friend. Not anymore. And I'm going to make sure he pays for what he did. Thaddeus pulled out his phone, showing her the screen. I've already called the police. I've given them everything, recordings of our conversations, evidence of what he did. He's going to jail, Kamilah. Why would he kidnap Zaire? To scare you away from me. He thought if you knew what I was capable of, what people in my world were capable of, you'd run. He was trying to protect the company's reputation. By threatening my child. By threatening my child, he repeated, and the pain in his voice was raw. Kamilah, I know I have no right to ask this, but I need you to know something. The night Zaire got sick, I paid your medical bills. Anonymously. The eviction notice? I paid your back rent. Your credit card debt? Gone. She stared at him, processing this information. You what? I couldn't stand watching you struggle when I had the power to help. I know it was wrong to do it without telling you, but you had no right. The words came out like bullets. No right to make decisions about my life. No right to fix my problems without asking. No right to take away my choice. You're right. I'm sorry. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything between them. Finally, Kamilah spoke again. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not that you lied about being rich. It's not even that your psycho business partner kidnapped my son. She looked directly at him, and he saw his own heartbreak reflected in her eyes. The worst part is that I was falling in love with you too. With Ted. The construction worker who remembered my coffee order and asked about my kid and made me feel like maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. You weren't falling in love with Ted. You were falling in love with me. The real me. The man I am when I'm with you, not the man I have to be in boardrooms and business meetings. How can I know what's real anymore? Before he could answer, Esperanza appeared at their table. Girl, there are men in suits asking for you out front. They got badges. Detective Rodriguez and another officer entered the diner, walking directly to their table. Miss Dubois? We have some good news. We arrested Cornelius Blackwell this morning. We also recovered security footage showing him taking your child from your neighbor's apartment. He's being charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, and terroristic threatening. Kamilah felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. What about bail? Denied. The judge considered him a flight risk. Detective Rodriguez looked between Kamilah and Thaddeus. Mr. Crane's testimony and evidence were crucial in building our case. After the police left, Kamilah and Thaddeus sat across from each other in the now empty diner. The morning rush was over, and Esperanza had tactfully disappeared into the kitchen. So what happens now? Kamilah asked quietly. That's up to you. I need time to process all of this, to figure out how I feel about everything. I understand. But I need you to understand something too. She reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. When I fell for Ted, I fell for the man who showed up every day, who was kind to me when he didn't have to be, who saw me as more than just a struggling single mom. If that man was real, if any of that was real, then maybe we can figure this out. It was real. All of it. Then prove it. 3 months later, Kamilah was walking across the stage at City Community College, accepting her certificate in nursing administration. In the audience, Thaddeus sat next to Mrs. Odette, both of them cheering louder than anyone else. He'd kept his promise. No more lies, no more secrets, no more making decisions about her life without asking. He'd offered to pay for her education, and after long discussions she'd accepted, but as a loan, with a payment plan she'd insisted on creating herself. I won't be your charity case, she told him. But I'll be your partner, if you'll let me keep my independence. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were still difficult conversations about money, about class differences, about how to build a relationship when one person could buy countries and the other still clipped coupons. There were arguments about pride, about help, about what it meant to be equals when everything about their backgrounds was unequal. But there was also love. Real, complicated, hard-fought love. After the ceremony, they walked to the diner where it all started. Booth 7 was empty, waiting for them. So, Kamilah said, sliding across from him just like that first honest conversation 3 months ago. Ted the construction worker is officially dead and buried. Good riddance. He was a liar anyway. But Thaddeus Crane. She studied his face, seeing him clearly for the first time. I'm still figuring out what I think about him. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. As if summoned by the promise in his voice, Zaire started fussing in his car seat. Kamilah lifted him out, and Thaddeus watched as she settled the baby against her shoulder with the practiced ease of someone who'd been doing everything alone for too long. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. That first day you walked in here, what did you see when you looked at me? He thought about it seriously, the way he'd learned to think about all her questions. Honest. Complete. I saw someone who was tired but wouldn't quit. Someone who cared more about other people than herself. Someone who was beautiful and didn't know it, strong and didn't believe it. He paused. Someone I wanted to know better, even though I had no right to want that. And now I see the woman I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to deserve. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But as Kamilah looked at this man who'd lied to her, saved her, broken her heart, and earned her trust all over again, she realized that real love never was. One day at a time, she asked. One day at a time, he agreed. And for the first time since this whole crazy story began, that felt like enough. Outside Mel's diner, the city hummed with the stories of millions of people just trying to make it through another day. Some of those stories would end in heartbreak. Some in triumph. Some, like Kamilah and Thaddeus's, would end in the messy, complicated, beautiful space between the two. But that's where the best love stories always live, not in the fairy tale, but in the choice to keep trying, keep trusting, keep showing up for each other, one day at a time. Because sometimes the most extraordinary love grows from the most ordinary moments, and sometimes a skipped lunch and a cup of coffee can change 2 lives forever. Thank you for watching this incredible journey of love, trust, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe for more amazing true stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary love. And remember, you never know when your own fairy tale might be sitting right across from you in booth 7.